because there's this idea that's sort of pervading Romans 5:12, pervading culture right now, that the way things always were or the way things are now, right? The way things are now is the way things always were. Maybe I should say that. The way things are now is the way things that always were. And that's actually not a biblical idea at all. That's a very naturalistic assumption. It's not even a deduction. It's a philosophical, religious concept that Christians just sort of absorb, especially if you were raised in public school and were taught evolution, right? That's just what you're going to get, or uniformitarianism in geology. The way things are now is the way things have always been. Yet, what the Bible's teaching, both at the beginning in Genesis as well as in Romans, and Romans, if you ever want to read it, is sort of the thesis of what is Christianity in a single book, right? If you just want to read 16 short chapters on what is Christianity and why, that's that. So if you read here, wherefore as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. So there we go. We've got this idea that sin entered the world through a person, and that death by sin entered into the world through a person's decisions and actions. So there was a point at which, even if it was 12 minutes, right, where that death wasn't in the world through sin, because that sin hadn't happened yet, because the sin comes from a man. Does that make sense? So all this is to say is the fact that the world is broken. Well, in a sense, the Bible has a response to that, right? The evidence of that is in the Bible. I mean, just keep reading. Was it Genesis 4? Cain kills Abel, I think. The next chapter, murder, for the first time, of two brothers, right? Anyone who has kids, who has siblings, children who are siblings, right? That just boggles the mind that at any point in time they would kill each other, right? But that's what you see. So the point being is that the fact that the world is broken isn't necessarily a sign that God isn't good. It's just that God hasn't intervened, right? And that's a legitimate question some people have of, well, wait a second, the Holocaust was specifically targeting Jews, and that's God's people, so why, well, Jews and other people, but, I mean, among the people being targeted, Jews were in that list. Why didn't God intervene, right? Well, if you think about, well, where's the source of all this bad stuff come from? It's people, right? The Nazis were doing it. It wasn't like hurricanes, tornado, lightning strikes were just zapping Jews. No. It was people. It was these terrible people targeting Jews and gay people and disabled people. It was terrible. But if God was going to intervene to stop all that evil, he'd basically have to intervene on 99% of all human activity. We would have no opportunity for free will. Remember, the choice that Adam made at the beginning, Genesis 1, was based on free will, right? And that's what he'd have to do to intervene, to prevent or stop, I guess you should say, the intervene on all the evil of the world, yet somehow he doesn't. And we can get into that later. It's kind of a big thing, free will and God and Calvinism, if you're a theological person. We'll get into all that, okay? No worries there. But the point being here is the fact that the fact and the evidence that the world is broken go towards saying God is good or God is not. Well, if the world always was this way, if God created it this way, and this is the way it's always been with cancer and disease and starvation and death, then apparently that's very good. So if you're a person of faith who believes in millions of years, you got to struggle with that, because that's what the fossil record records. If you're a person of faith who doesn't believe in that, and we'll get into more of that later, there's another option, there's another view that takes the Bible very seriously and science very seriously. We'll get into that later. Don't worry about that for now. Point being is God good? Based on the world, based on the evidence we see, well, God didn't cause it, okay? We're the ones who are screwing it up. And even the coronavirus thing, the fact that nature is broken is still coming from the brokenness that came from man's decision. So, we've talked about the Bible's answer to is God good, and basically God's the hero of the Bible. So we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it. If you read the Bible, you're going to come away with this feeling that, well, God appears to be the hero of the story, even though you might disagree with some of the actions that he has done, and I'll kind of get to that by point 3 here. Point 2 is, well, let's look at the world. The world's broken and messed up. Well, if God's good and made the world, then he's a terrible creator. I mean, look how terrible everything is. Well, he didn't make it this way. Things have changed because of human activity, because of human free will. And then the final one that I really want to talk about, which is, I think, this is the root of this question, like 99% of the time, is God good to me in my life? And usually the question is, why isn't God good to me in my life? And let me just start by saying, if you're someone who's hurting right now from some legitimately awful thing, all I can really say to you is, I'm sorry. That sucks. There's nothing more I can say, because anything from here on out, I'm going to be giving you kind of a rational defense, or not really a defense, just rational explanation. But that's not going to help you feel better right now. So I'm just going to say my heart goes out to you, and I'm going to say I'm sorry that you're suffering. This isn't going to help you feel better. Maybe it'll help you understand it a little bit more. But for those of you who are not in that place, who are kind of in the, okay, let's just think rationally here. You know, you're not in that deep emotional pain. Let me speak to this. So the question is God good to me? And I mean, I've struggled with this for a long, long time, until more recently. And I think my mistake personally, and that's all I can really give you is, again, we're talking about my life here. I don't know your life, so I'm going to talk about mine, is what expectation do I have from God? What do I think I deserve from him? What does he owe me? Right? What am I owed? What have I earned? What should I get from God? Because if I think I should get this super calm and peaceful life and not struggle with anxiety and health problems and anger and all the other things that I struggle with, then I'm going to be like, right, you, God, you've ruined my life, right? But if you think about it, I mean, at least for me, I'll just do it from my perspective. I lie. I've lied in the past, right? I've had lustful thoughts in the past. I've hated people in the past. I have taken God's name in vain by proclaiming that I'm a Christian, then not acting like it, especially on Facebook. I apologize to anybody I've ever said anything not nice to on Facebook. I mean, there we go. So, I mean, if you know the Ten Commandments, and most people are familiar with some of them, I'm a lying, adulterous, blaspheming murderer. I mean, okay, you might be kind of shocked, like, dude, you didn't kill anybody, you just, like, disliked someone. Okay, Jesus said that if you look at a woman with lust, you're an adulterer, right? So, I'm out. If you hate someone, which, you know, could be translated as, or understood as, perhaps, as an option, you dislike someone so much you wanted them permanently removed from your life and wanted bad things to happen to them, right? I'd say maybe that's a good definition of hate. Then yeah, I've qualified, right? I'm a murderer. I'm an adulterer. I'm a liar. I'm a blasphemer. And that's 4 of the 10 Commandments. Need I go on? I've dishonored my mother and father. Back in Israel, I would have been stoned to death. Ancient Israel, not the current one. You get my point. What does God owe me from my actions? Nothing. Because if God is a good God, he's a just God, and I deserve punishment. And I think deep down, if we just examine our behavior, maybe just today, right? Coronavirus is probably bringing out the worst in most of us, COVID-19. I guess just say COVID-19. It's bringing out a lot of bad stuff in all of us. I mean, I've seen some stuff on Facebook that, like, I'm just going to have grace for y'all and pretend I didn't see that next year when I'm talking about some other thing. The point being, what we deserve from God isn't, you know, rainbows and fairy tales. It's punishment. It's judgment. What we get, though, is blessing. And, I mean, everybody, if you are sucking wind and fogging a mirror, you are blessed because you're alive. Right? Because God could have rolled up on Genesis 3 when Eve took the apple and Adam took the apple. He could have just, like, come in and just, like, nuked the place. Right? Oh, you sinned. Right? You know, everyone says, oh, God, you know, the God of the Old Testament's this evil God, right? Or this super harsh God. He could have nuked it. Boom. I mean, he did later with water. We'll get into that. But he could have done that. He could do that every single time. I mean, look outside for 5 seconds. He could destroy the earth. That's what we deserve. Yet he doesn't. So if anything, now I do believe God is a just God, and we'll get into how the Bible talks about that. But if anything, I would say that in my life, in our life, in your life, you are blessed, even if you're suffering and in pain right now. And I think the only way to really get through suffering and pain is to reflect on your blessings. That's all I can really say as an encouragement. And I will say this, there's an amazingly inspirational teacher. Voyachik. Can never remember this guy's name. It's not my fault, okay? You'll see it in a second right here. Nick Voyachik. For most of us, our life is not as hard as his. Just being honest. Like, arms and legs. Okay? He's got a tougher life than me. Yeah, this guy has a joy because he understands his blessings. He understands what he deserves in his blessings. I encourage you, go watch some of his videos. Like, if you're not crying, you don't have a heart. I'm kidding. I'm just saying. Anyway, so what do we talk about? Well, I think that a very good case can be made that good ultimately, we all kind of know deep down, even if we kind of want to reject it, that good is ultimately, it's a real objective thing, right? Torturing babies for fun is always wrong, evil, right? I'm not saying it couldn't be justified with some weird twisted situation, but it's always evil. So if good and evil is a subjective thing, then what standard are we looking at? Well, if we're looking at the Bible, the standard actually is God and his goodness. And so you're kind of stuck there saying, is God good? Well, yeah, according to the Bible, he is. Okay. When we look at the world, is God good when we look at this broken world? Well, God didn't make it that way. He gave it to us to take care of, and look what we did with it. So it's really more a reflection on us than on him, and he hasn't intervened, because if he did, that's just a logical consequence. Again, the evidence is not the logical consequence. I'm just saying he would have to just shut down all human free will. And finally, is God good in my life? If you are fogging a mirror right now, right? If you are sucking wind, if you're blinking, if your heart is beating, yes, he is good. He has given you what you don't deserve. He's given you grace in the air in your lungs, and for most of us, at least one functioning limb and at least a couple brain cells, right? He has given us what we don't deserve based on that objective goodness and badness, right? That moral code. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm sorry I haven't been able to dig into more of this, but I'm going to be honest. It's like 9 o'clock on a Saturday, and I've been wanting to do this all day, and I'm exhausted, and I can't even think straight anymore, and I'm trying not to make bad jokes right now because my brain's like, boop. So I hope this has been helpful. I know this is part 2 of a video. This was supposed to be a single part video, and one of my hotkeys for my recording software was the space bar, and as soon as I typed into the thing there, it killed my video, and I was talking to nothing for 15 minutes. So that sucks. So hopefully this was as good as my first take that you will never see because it never recorded. Anyway, hey, if this was helpful to you, please like and throw in a comment. Even if you didn't like it, throw in a comment. More activity helps other people see it on YouTube as we search for this stuff, as they search for this stuff. So if you thought it was helpful for you, that would help others. Again, if it's really helpful to you, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to release videos on a relatively consistent basis. We'll see how that goes. And especially if you want to know when I upload content, please hit that notification bell. Subscriptions don't mean a whole lot, but the notification bell will really help. Anyway, my name is Ben Reese. I've been thinking, even late at night, and I'm tired, and I'm probably going to go to bed now. But remember, don't let anyone do your thinking for you. Got to press the right hotkey now. Bye-bye.